The Houthis in Yemen are growing bolder by the day. For the fifth time this week, they fired a ballistic missile into Israel, sending millions of people running to bomb shelters. Yahya Sinwar's brother is doing everything he can to stall on a hostage ceasefire deal, and once again, MK Itamar Ben-Gvir committed an outrage. Yes, he prayed on the Temple Mount, and not only that, he did it on Hanukkah. Guys, we have a lot to get into today. I'm Justin Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Before we jump into the headlines for today, happy Hanukkah from Israel. For the fifth time this week, the Houthis in Yemen fired a ballistic missile at Israel, sending millions of people running to bomb shelters. Just look at this map. Imagine living through this on a daily basis. Thankfully, Israel was able to intercept it with their Arrow 3 missile defense system, but the Houthis are getting really bold. They're almost acting like they're not scared at all of Israel's retaliation. One of the Houthi leaders said yesterday that he, quote, does not fear the Jews. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, do you think you will do to us what you did to Hezbollah? Ask the Yemeni Jews who we are. So either they're just bluffing or they're really dumb and they don't realize that Israel's not going to sit back. They're not going to let them continue firing ballistic missiles into Israel almost on a daily basis without major consequences. Shai talked about it the other day that Israel is planning a massive response against the Houthis. Netanyahu said that the Houthis and their Iranian backers, quote, are learning and will learn the hard way that whoever harms Israel will pay a very heavy price for it. Also yesterday, Wednesday evening, the Houthis launched a drone into Israel. It caused air raid sirens to go off all over southern Israel. It seems like the Houthis at this point, they're just playing with fire. Thankfully, Israel, the U.S., they have been retaliating, but I think it's only a matter of time before there is a massive, major response or strike from Israel, possibly together in collaboration with the United States against the Houthis in Yemen. Okay, speaking of playing with fire, that is exactly what Yahya Sinwar's brother is doing with ceasefire negotiations. So apparently there was some optimism about a ceasefire deal with Hamas getting really close. Personally, I was never really optimistic about it. Any ceasefire that is anything less than the unconditional surrender of Hamas and the return of all the hostages is, in fact, a win for Hamas. Well, now Israeli officials are saying that there are major obstacles to the latest deal, specifically Yahya Sinwar's brother, Mohamed. JNS said that, quote, sources close to the talks paint a picture of deliberate obstruction, describing how slain Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's brother has consistently misled mediators over weeks, stonewalling requests for hostage lists and withdrawing from previously reached agreements. Security and political officials have expressed deep concern over Sinwar's handling of the negotiations. As I said before, optimism is waning. It's also not helping that Hamas is refusing to release a list of hostages for the initial release, which, if you think about it, is absolutely insane. Like, shouldn't this be a requisite for a deal? Like, either you give us a list or there's no deal at all. Maybe Israel should just stop worrying about a deal, finish off Hamas once and for all. We'll be right back with the rest of the show in just 1 second. But first, the festival of Hanukkah just started last night, and it reminds us that there's hope even in the darkest moments. Holocaust survivors, many now in their 90s, are facing another winter with empty pantries and little to keep them warm. Families living in poverty, including over 1 million children, are going to bed hungry every night, their parents overwhelmed by the rising costs due to the war. At the same time, brave IDF soldiers and reservists continue to defend Israel's border, with many of them returning home with life-changing injuries and trauma. These men and women who risk everything to protect the land of Israel need your support. In 2024, thanks to the generosity of people like you, Me'ir Panim delivered over 2.6 million meals to those in need. More than 500,000 care packages were sent to IDF soldiers and displaced families, and over 2,200 Holocaust survivors received daily hot meals and emotional support. This Hanukkah, Me'ir Panim is doing more than ever. You can help them deliver thousands of Hanukkah packages filled with treats, hot meals, and menorahs to Holocaust survivors, displaced families, IDF soldiers, and their families. You can help provide thousands of coats, heaters, scarves, and gloves to those who can't afford them, and so much more. Now is the time to act. Your kindness rekindles hope and reminds Israel they are never alone. Just click the link in the description below to make your light shine this Hanukkah and help the people of Israel. So speaking of fighting the bad guys, whether that be physical or spiritual, this morning, which happens to be the first day of Hanukkah, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir committed one of the most scandalous actions possible in Israel, and that was that he actually went up to the Temple Mount and said a prayer. I know, how egregious. On Hanukkah, no less, the festival that commemorates the Jews' struggle against the Greeks and in rededication of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Oh my goodness, what an outrage. In a post to X this morning, Ben-Gvir said this: "We went up to the holy place this morning to pray for the safety of our soldiers, for the speedy return of all those kidnapped, and for complete victory with God's help." A beautiful prayer, in my opinion, but unfortunately, with the state of the world today, the mere act of praying to God causes a complete meltdown. In case you've been living under a rock for the last few decades, prayer on the Temple Mount has long been forbidden. That is, of course, unless you happen to be Muslim, with Jewish worshipers actually being arrested even quite recently. I remember in years past going up to the Temple Mount, getting yelled at and harassed by Muslims for moving my lips because I might be praying silently. I know it's an extremely discriminatory and racist policy, but for some reason the world and even the Israeli government is okay with it. But recently, even if the Israeli government's official position hasn't changed, Netanyahu's office was quick to announce that the status quo in the holy site has not changed, the actual situation on the ground has been changing, and it's definitely shifting the atmosphere here in Israel. This is thanks in large part, again, to Minister Ben-Gvir, who has been quite vocal on the issue and regularly ascends himself. So I guess it's good news, but it's also mixed with some sadness when you see the government refusing to support freedom of religion and freedom of speech for all peoples. We'll have to see what comes out of this, but definitely keep praying. This is something we want to see more of. Jews being free in their God-given land. And speaking of status quo, the Palestinian Authority has been doing something different recently. I think they're trying to prove to the US and the world that they are a responsible party that could govern the Gaza Strip the day after the war, because recently they've been doing a bunch of counterterrorism raids in different Palestinian Arab towns here in Judea and Samaria. They've been doing a sort of campaign in Jenin this past week. According to Arutz Sheva, the official spokesman for the Palestinian Authority, security forces claimed on Wednesday that the security mechanisms succeeded in capturing several wanted terrorists in Jenin. In a statement to the media, the spokesman said, quote, "After intelligence was received about the escape of several criminals from the Jenin refugee camp and their fortification in one of the buildings in the village of Silat al-Harithia, a force from the security apparatuses laid siege to the house and arrested 3 suspects, one of whom was injured by gunfire during the exchange of fire." They didn't say, but these are probably either Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists that they captured. Somebody commented on this article, they said, quote, "LOL, one group of terrorists went and arrested another group of terrorists." Yeah, that's exactly right. For our Zionist scripture of the day, guys, we were talking about the Temple Mount earlier. Isaiah 56 verse 7 says, "These I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples." Maybe soon and in our days. Don't forget to go support Me'ir Panim, help them feed the poor in Israel. Also, feel free to click the link in the description below to check out our end of the year fundraising campaign. Also get some exclusive Israel Guys merch as our gift to you guys. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda. Connect with the truth of what is happening here in Israel. We'll be back soon here at the Israel Guys. Catch you in the next one.